Husband makes constant mean jokes, and I need him to stop before I can consider bringing a child into our family. I, 31F, have been with my husband, 40 male, for 10 years, now married. I always knew I wanted to have kids only after I was married, and now that we finally are, I've allowed myself to start thinking more in depth about it, and I had an inconvenient realization. I could not bring a child into this situation without seeing change in his behavior. While he has this one bad habit, our relationship is not inherently verbally abusive, so I'm having trouble finding resources and stories from others who have been in similar situations. The good: he is a great provider, he would be a very fun dad, he is very generous and supportive. I love him, he loves me. The bad: he makes jokes that are hurtful and make me feel a fundamental lack of respect. I'm fine, but when I imagine me as a child growing up with a father like him, I just can't even fathom how broken I would be. I know I need to address this before having kids. We have had conversations about this in the past, and it's just who he is, not aimed only at me, and I am a very sensitive person. The problem: how can I have a conversation about this with him? I'm not perfect, so why is it okay for me to point out his flaws? Is there a playbook here, a guide? I just can't stand feeling like I'm issuing an ultimatum or holding him hostage. And I feel so awful that I didn't have the insight or personal awareness to address this before we got married. I'm struggling to frame this in a way that is supportive, us as a team against this issue instead of me attacking him. How do I address this? ETA, thanks for the help and concern, all. I don't know what this means for me, and it's a lot to process, but I really appreciate so many people sharing their thoughts with me. Not trying for kids, not off birth control, he barely touches me anyways. Under no circumstances would I bring a child into this situation currently. Update 1. I have been with my husband for 10 years, married 6 months. Posted on an advice sub, and I'm realizing it's a bigger issue than I thought. So, what now? I'm having a really hard time digesting all of this. I read, why does he do that? Yesterday, couldn't put it down, and while I see some things that my partner does, it's not many, and it's honestly not often. It really boils down to making mean jokes and unsolicited advice/critiques. That's all. And not all the time. I've been thinking it over for 3 days, and he hasn't said anything bad in that time. When he does, it just sticks out in my mind because it's hurtful. Here is what I think need help understanding. Is it possible that this isn't intentional? He learned his behaviors from his mother and has low emotional intelligence. I know that he truly loves me. I can't understand how he could do this on purpose. How is he such a truly great, supportive, kind partner in other ways? Does that outweigh his faults? He is such a great provider, he is supportive of my career and pays all of our expenses, which allows me to work doing what I love. This is a big sacrifice for him and something he did very intentionally for me. How could someone do that to someone they want to hurt? What if it really truly is me? I am sensitive and insecure. I do make things that are benign about me when I'm feeling down. I know these things are true. Couldn't it be a combination of an awful, outdated, unfunny sense of humor and me being hypersensitive to criticism? I think we both share fault here. Update 2. I talked to my therapist, who I was seeing because husband had me believing I had emotional regulation and communication problems, came armed with research and concrete examples of his manipulative, controlling and demeaning patterns. She was supportive but firm, recommended I reach out to my local DV organization to help me work out a safe exit plan and get legal aid regarding the divorce. She said sooner rather than later. And I trust her. But I am stunned. I feel like my whole entire world is upside down. I keep flipping back and forth between, thank God other people can see this too, I'm not crazy and it is that bad and he's my best friend, I'm heartbroken and he's the only one there for me, he needs me and I could never leave him. I know I should leave, but I don't know what to do. I just want to talk to him and work it out, and this will all just be one big misunderstanding, right? I'm heartbroken. I can't have kids here, but if I leave I'll be alone and also probably won't have kids. And I'll be broken and ashamed. All those conversations. He's going to want me back or want an explanation. I really think that's what I'm hung up on the most. He has so little emotional awareness that I know he won't have any idea what I'm talking about. I know he'll think I'm crazy. I want him to know what he's done, but he's not going to. He might not ever understand. We're so happy so much of the time, I don't know if I can do this. Anyways, hi, worst update. But you all were right. For anyone in a similar situation, Lundy Bancroft's why does he do that? Was very eye-opening and described him in ways I couldn't articulate on my own. He fits the profile of the water torturer perfectly. Additionally, very helpful these past few days. The hotline, looks like I can't link, but you can search, they have a text or chat service, and for anyone out there like me, it's not just emotional/verbal abuse, it's abuse, and they are there to help and support. I spent a few hours over a few days just talking through things with people who really understood, and it was exactly what I needed. Update 3, very recently realized that my 10-year-long relationship is not healthy. No need to go into details because the profile of a water torturer from Lundy Bancroft's why would he do that fits him like a glove. Cruel, cutting remarks disguised as jokes or helpful comments. Constant criticism. That man could Darvo the pants off of Trump. If I take a step back, it's impressive. All in all, it's taken me completely by surprise. In the last few weeks I've found out that I'm not the source of all our relationship troubles. I'm not a complete fuck up of a wife, and none of this is normal. It's a mindfuck. Now I'm biding time. I have an exit plan, but I'm saving for the next few months before I execute it. It's been about a week. I am fucking exhausted. All of that energy I used to spend twisting myself into exactly who I knew he wanted, regulating my reactions, hiding me. It is not enough. Not nearly enough. Now that I see this shit in every interaction and spend my time cycling through rage and shame and excitement and mourning, I'm spent. Y'all, I have no idea how I'm going to get through the next few months. I'm so excited to start living again, but fuck. Advice much appreciated. Brief background: my husband's verbal abuse and coercive control have increased over the past decade. I've recently realized the state of this marriage and am planning my exit. As I've become more aware of his behaviors and can see things more clearly, it has been harder to maintain my good wife attitude. I'm standing up for myself more. I'm growing concerned about my safety, but not sure if the incident today is enough to involve police. He has never been physically violent. Incident: today, after I had upset him by standing up for myself in a conversation, he talked for at least a full minute about how he would kill me, as a joke. He said, roughly, that, because I was speaking this way to him lately, he would kill me in my sleep. It would be easy because I'm such a sound sleeper. Then went back and said I'm surprisingly strong when I'm asleep, I toss and turn, and that it might give me an advantage. More talk about how easy it would be, then the part that bothered me most: no, if I'm going to go to all the trouble of killing you, I'd strangle you while you're awake, I'd want to see the light leave your eyes, I'd have to get something good out of it. The fact that it was fairly specific and in direct response to me upsetting him has me concerned for my safety between now and leaving, especially if he finds out or grows suspicious. My gut says it might be worth involving the police and moving up my exit timeline. My concerns and questions: is what he said legally considered a threat? Is it actionable considering this is just based on my word? What would, likely, happen if I did chose to report this? Update 4. Hi. I'm not sure if anyone will see this, but I had such an outpouring of support over a whole bunch of subreddits, so I thought this might be the best way to give an update. First, thank you. Thank you all. Everyone who reached out with support, everyone who shared their stories, everyone who pushed back and gave me the opportunity to form my own viewpoints and advocate for myself. Without the reality check that came from my posts, I'm sure I would have been stuck in this for much longer than I was already. The update: I'm out. It was a long process, it wasn't linear, and there was so much self-doubt along the way. But I wanted to share the moment that it finally stuck. We had been going back and forth with the divorce. He's doing all the things, he's being the best version of himself, he's improving. Lots more details that ultimately aren't important, but he kept asking, "Are you sure?" And I wasn't for a long time. He worked his magic and I thought that maybe I'd made the worst mistake of my life. But he kept asking, and I kept listening to my gut. I tried saying no, let's call this all off and work on us, but that didn't feel good. I felt heavy, like it was putting back on this huge burden that I had just started to get out of. Then I tried saying maybe. I was being honest, I was confused, and I told him that. I said I needed time, I needed space. But that felt restrictive, it felt like my body was being compressed. And one morning I realized I hadn't tried saying yes yet. I hadn't tried telling him that yes, I wanted this to be over. So I tried it, I said yes, let's end this. And it felt like all of the weight was lifted off of me. It felt like I could fill my lungs fully again. It felt like the sort of warmth in your chest that you get when your mom gives you a hug. So it stuck. I'm learning to listen to myself again and to trust my instincts. I'm not judging myself for my path to get here. I'm treating myself with all the compassion and kindness I deserved for all those years. I'm on my own path now and it feels so amazing to be here. Update 5. I thought the big moment would be the yes, and in a way it was. But it turns out saying yes is a door, not a destination. I walked through it and immediately found out I have to do about 9,000 little brave things every day. I'm doing them. I am so proud of me I could cry, and I do, constantly. I moved out. It was a weekday morning because I didn't want the dramatic weekend hallway audience. My best friend showed up with iced coffees and a roll of blue tape like we were going to stage manage a play about my life. We kept it clinical. The DV advocate had suggested a quiet move, so he didn't know it was move-out day until he did. He was home, because of course he was. He opened the door like a hotel concierge and just watched. The show of supportiveness was Oscar-worthy. He carried a box of cookbooks to my car and said, "All gentle, you'll call me if you want the Le Creuset, right? I know heavy things are hard for you," with that smile that is probably charming if you haven't been behind it for a decade. I said, "Thank you," and kept my face flat. Gray rock is a full-body sport, by the way. Everything in me wanted to twitch. 2 interesting things happened. First, he tried to slip a joke in front of my friend, which was almost funny in a nature documentary way because you could see the reflex fire before he realized he didn't have the right audience. He picked up a little pottery mug I made and goes, "I'll wrap this one, you're clumsy, and we can't have you breaking something else you've worked hard on," with that tone that makes your nervous system tilt. I felt my friend lift her head like a wolf scenting a threat, and I swore I saw him calculate and pivot mid-sentence, because it's very special. You did a good job on it. I put the mug in my own box and taped it shut. Second, as we were leaving, he put his hand on the door frame blocking my exit, old school, and said very softly, "You're sure?" I heard my pulse in my ears, and then I heard myself say, "Yes," and the hand moved. That was probably the most cinematic it got. I'm in a little third-floor apartment with creaky floors and a sink that drips unless you really commit to turning the faucet off. It smells like the last tenant's laundry detergent, which I weirdly find comforting. Day 1 I built an IKEA dresser by myself and stripped a screw and cried over the stupid screw, and then went to the hardware store and asked a man with forearms like tree trunks what to do, and he taught me about screw extractors, and I came home and did it and felt like I had personally invented competence. My couch is a Facebook marketplace find that looks like it has been loved hard by a succession of grad students. I bought white sheets and a loud yellow kettle because I can. No commentary. No, but white sheets are impractical. I am drinking tea out of a chipped mug that would have made him twitch, and I love it like a pet. The first night I slept there, I woke up at 3:11 a.m. because the fridge made a sound like a wounded whale. I did the whole heart pounding, "Where are the exits?" thing, and then remembered there's no one here to slam a cabinet and make it my fault. The quiet is weirdly loud and also like a weighted blanket I didn't know I needed. I slept again. I woke up to a square of sun on the floor like a stage light and ate cereal out of a mixing bowl because I only have 2 bowls and one is holding limes like a Pinterest person, and I refuse to dismantle that happiness yet. He did not take the yes gracefully for long. The hoovering came in like a tide. Flowers delivered to my work, reception knew, we'd prepared, bless the receptionist who just texted me a flower emoji and do we tell them no thank you, emails about remembered laughter, a PDF of a therapist's couples goals worksheet he had filled out on his own like extra credit, and then, when none of that got me to nibble, the sharpness slipped out. The worst was a text that said, "It's wild how much you've changed. I almost don't recognize you. You used to be kind." I swallowed that one and then forwarded it to my own email and labeled it with the date. A strange calm settled in. Evidence folder. Document. We are not in the realm of convincing anymore, we are in the realm of paper trails. Which is timely, because the threat thing didn't leave my body just because I left the house. I filed for a protection order. I wasn't going to, I thought it would be too much. My therapist did that face where she keeps her eyebrows neutral so I don't mirror panic and said, "You're not doing this to punish him. You're drawing a line and asking the court to help you keep it." The hearing itself was horrible and ordinary. He arrived in the nice dad sweater and was so reasonable you could hear the fluorescent lights hum. He kept his voice low and used words like concerned and miscommunication, and the judge looked at me the way judges do when they have to parse out 2 stories with no broken bones and one of them is well spoken. I shook so hard my paper rattled and my advocate put a hand on my back in that way that made me feel human again. I had the screenshots. The judge read the one about "I'd want to see the light leave your eyes," and I watched his jaw flex. I watched his lawyer lean in and whisper, and I watched my ex decide whether to smirk. He didn't. He did something more dangerous. He looked sad. The order was granted for a year. I sat in my car in the courthouse parking garage and watched the little digital clock on my dash flick from 1:59 to 2 o'clock and cried and then laughed like an insane person because I realized for the first time in forever that if he sends an email and it makes me shake, I have a piece of paper that says I am not overreacting. If he shows up, I call 911 and that is not me making it a big deal. It's the process. I didn't know how much weight that would lift. His mother left me a voicemail the next day and I listened to it twice because if you had told me a few months ago that a human adult could be that on script, I would have rolled my eyes. "Sweetie, you know how he jokes. He doesn't mean it. Marriage is hard. You've always been so sensitive, that's one of the things we love about you, but it gets you in trouble." The way love and trouble came out in the same breath like a braided rope made me take a big mouthful of air and sit there with my hands flat on my desk. I did not call her back. I added the voicemail to a different little folder in my phone that is basically titled Reminders. Dividing property has been the pettiest, most revealing little scavenger hunt. He offered to box my stuff and then delivered a plastic tub of kitchen that turned out to be the blender base without the pitcher, 3 lids to containers we no longer own, a whisk that tangles itself on purpose, and the corkscrew that always sticks halfway through. It was like a still life of minor sabotage. I emailed back and said, "I'll arrange a time to collect the remaining items." He sent the Le Creuset picture with a caption that was almost funny, "So heavy, so hard to let go." If you had told me I would become a woman who writes emails with phrases like "per our previous" and not feel like a parody of myself, I would have laughed. Now it's armor. It's not all clerical warfare. I'm taking a pottery class again, because of course I am, and I did not expect mud to be this medicinal. The instructor has hands like an auntie and tells you to lean in to center the clay, and the first time I did it right the whole lump stopped wobbling and my shoulders dropped about an inch. I cried in front of a spinning wheel like a weird little Greek chorus. The mug I made is lumpy and too thick and it is my favorite thing I own. It's the exact color of those unripe limes I refuse to take out of the bowl. I am learning my body. I realized I haven't had a stomachache in a week and then realized that means I've had a stomachache for I can't count how long. I walked into my apartment barefoot with wet hair after a shower and did not sprint to wipe up the drops. I made eggs at 10 p.m. and put too much hot sauce on them and ate them off the couch and the world did not tilt. I said no to a phone call and didn't send a follow-up essay explaining my no. That one felt like jumping off a dock and finding out the water is warm. There was a wobble. I'm not going to pretend I didn't have a night where the loneliness felt like a physical thing with weight to it. I texted him I hope you're okay, which is, I know, a little like opening the door a crack to see if the storm is still there. He replied in under a minute with a novella that started with I'm glad you reached out and included I miss my best friend and I can't sleep knowing you might be making choices you'll regret, which is such a perfect sentence I want to frame it and use it in a class. I blocked him again and added it to the folder. I wrapped myself in a blanket and watched an episode of a show where people buy ugly houses and make them strange and beautiful and fell asleep on the couch like a person in a life that is not on fire. Work is weirdly the easiest part. Doing the thing I love without the constant background noise of is it practical? Do you deserve this? Is like taking ankle weights off. My boss pulled me aside after a meeting and said, you seem lighter, and it took everything I had not to burst into tears in the conference room. I said, I moved, and she said, good. Then she put a succulent with terrible little arms on my desk and told me not to kill it. I will probably kill it. It will feel like an honest mistake, not a failure. We had our first settlement conference. He wants the house, obviously. I want my books, my grandmother's quilt, the Le Creuset, picking my battles, and the car title clean. He tried to slide in a thing about the dog and I actually laughed out loud because we don't have a dog. My lawyer raised an eyebrow that said, in a very dry way, we'll be fine. Watching him try to bait in front of a notary is a very specific flavor of surreal. I will not pretend I don't get scared sometimes. I check under my car because a woman at the support group told us to always look, and my heart bruises itself against my ribs when someone who looks like him walks by too fast. But yesterday I walked home at twilight with a little box of Chinese takeout and the sky was doing that pink-gray thing, and a kid on a scooter tried to race a bus and lost by a mile, and a woman on a balcony watered a plant with a yogurt container, and I felt this warm little surge in my chest that I recognized. It was not drama. It was joy. It was small and not performative and completely mine. I don't know who I'll be a year from now. That used to terrify me. Now it's the whole point. For now, I can breathe. I can put my keys in a dish by the door and no one will move them to teach me a lesson about systems. I can leave my book open face down and not get a lecture about warped spines. I can answer a question with a single word. I can want and not apologize for wanting. He texted me this morning from an unknown number that I recognized immediately because that's how it goes. Hey. Just checking in. You seem stressed at the conference. I'm worried about you. My hand shook for a second. Then I put the phone face down and signed up for the next pottery session instead. Saying yes was the beginning. Staying yes is every quiet choice after. I'm getting good at it. I didn't think that would be the wild part, but it is. It's wild how ordinary it all is. It's wild how much I like it. Update 6. I didn't know my building had a personality until the fire alarm went off at 2:17 a.m. and all of us ended up in the parking lot in our pajamas like a suddenly assembled theater troupe that forgot their lines. Someone's toast got ambitious. I stood there barefoot on cold concrete holding my keys like a talisman and met half my neighbors. The woman from 3B handed me a hoodie from the back of her car without asking my size. The kid from 2A introduced me to his stuffed dinosaur who was brave about the beep. We all sighed at the same time when the fire truck pulled away. I went back upstairs and realized this is my life now, ridiculous and communal and not held together by the thin thread of managing someone. I signed the divorce papers on a Thursday because Wednesday felt superstitious and Friday felt like tempting fate. The courtroom was beige in the way that makes you think about dental offices and purgatory. He did the sweater thing again. He didn't look at me. His lawyer spoke in a voice that sounded like a weather report. Mine sat close enough that our shoulders almost touched and passed me a pen that was too nice for this room. The judge asked the questions, the kind that are both everything and nothing. Was there an irretrievable breakdown? Are you both aware of the terms? Do you want to restore your prior name? Yes, yes, yes. I said my last name out loud and felt like I unlocked a door in my own chest. 10 minutes later I was in the DMV, which is its own flavor of emotional preparation, and a woman with glitter in her eyeliner looked at my paperwork and said, "Congratulations, honey," with the kind of sincerity that knits you back up. I cried in the photo booth and I am immortalized with damp eyes and a grin that looks like a dare. I did not get the Le Creuset. He turned it into a saga. I let it be a saga he could have by himself. I bought a loud teal Dutch oven that makes the kitchen look like a cartoon. The first time I used it I burned the onions because I was dancing to a song in my socks and forgot to stir. I ate it anyway. No commentary, no quiet sigh. I licked the spoon, standing up. The protective order was just ink until he tested the edges of it. It came small at first, like a mosquito looking for skin, a 1-cent Venmo with for memories and a little smiling sunglasses emoji, which is apparently how some people think laws don't apply if they put them on. I screenshotted, I sent it to my advocate, I left my own sunglasses in my drawer at work because the fluorescent lights were somehow friendlier than the sun that day. A few days later he put a letter under my windshield wiper in the grocery store parking lot. My stomach did the elevator thing, and then something else happened. My body did the next thing I've trained it to do. I took a picture. I called the non-emergency line. I sat on the curb eating an orange from my bag because I suddenly tasted citrus like medicine. The officer who came out was young, the kind of face that still has baby in it, and he looked at the envelope and then at me and said, "You did the right thing calling." He said it like a sentence he'd practiced. I put that sentence in my pocket like a smooth stone. They went to his house. He got a talking to that apparently felt like more than a talking to, because things went very quiet for a while in a way that made me realize how much static I'd been carrying. Then his mother found me in the canned tomato aisle like a Greek chorus in a cardigan and did the whole script with such commitment it should be studied. "You know how he jokes, you know he didn't mean it, marriage is hard, you've always been so sensitive, that's what makes you special, are you really going to throw away all those years over a misunderstanding?" I looked at the labels, crushed, diced, whole, and said, "I have a court order. You're violating it by acting as a messenger. I'm going to go now." My voice did not wobble. I left my basket with the limes in it right there and walked to my car. She called my name. I kept walking. I sat behind the wheel and learned that shaking can be proof of strength too. The ex reached out. The one before me. It was an email with my name spelled correctly and a subject line that just said hello. She found me through a mutual who finally grew a conscience when he started telling people I was unstable and unkind in a way that he cannot deliver without smiling. We met in a diner in broad daylight like spies who eat pancakes. She has that look I recognize in my own face lately, tired and alive. She said, "I kept thinking maybe I was the problem and then I read your thing about the dish towels and I laughed so hard I had to sit down." We compared notes. It felt like putting a transparency over a sheet of paper and watching the lines match up. He had used the exact same sentence about how he wants to see the light leave your eyes, but in a different context, and I had to grip my coffee cup for a minute and breathe, like I was learning that skill for the first time. She brought her own stack of printed emails she never sent and I brought the evidence folder I never thought I'd have, and we ate eggs and looked at our ghosts and said we were not crazy to each other with our inside voices and our outside voices. It was one of the holiest things I've ever done, in a booth that smelled like maple syrup and bleach. I started a self-defense class because my body forgot for a decade that it has volume. The instructor is exactly who you hope for, compact, ruthless, kind. She made us practice saying no with our mouths before we even lifted our hands. The first time I did it, it came out like air. She said do it again. I did it again and the woman next to me made eye contact and we both nodded like we'd just seen something hard and good. By the third class I could feel my voice rattle my ribs. The strangest thing is how laughing lives next door to fear in your throat. We laughed a lot. I bought myself a keychain that's basically a little baton and it sits in my palm like a secret I'm not sorry about. Pottery continues to make me feel like a god and a toddler. I opened the kiln last week and 3 of my mugs had slumped like they were very tired of me, but one came out perfect, the curve of it so right my hands went quiet. It's glazed this ridiculous swampy green that someone else in class made fun of and I love it all the more. The instructor taught me how to pull a handle and I realized every metaphor I've been using is actually literal. You have to lean but not too much. You have to keep your hands steady and your pressure steady and then stop before you want to. I rescued a cat who came with the name Dorito and there was nothing I could do about that. He is orange and shaped like a loaf and he has opinions about sun patches. He knocked one of the limes out of the bowl and chased it across the floor and then fell asleep with his face on it like he was protecting treasure. I talk to him in full sentences. He answers by blinking. When the mail slot slaps he sits up like a soldier. When the kettle sings he does not flinch. There's something about a living creature sleeping on your feet while you read something you chose that makes the world tilt back into place. Work continues to be the place where I learn what I am like when no one is grading me for it. I said no to a project that would have eaten my weekends and then said yes to one that scares me in the right way. My boss pulled me into a glass-walled conference room, you know, the kind you'd never cry in if you had any control at all, and said, "You're doing well," and I had to stare at a spider plant because if I looked at her face it would have turned into an Oprah moment. He tried to triangulate through a mutual friend, the one with a craft beer collection and an earnest belief in grown men learning lessons, and sent a message, "He's worried about me, I seem manic, am I sure my therapist isn't making things worse?" Beer friend asked if I wanted him to pass something on. I said, "Please pass on nothing." Then I blocked beer friend on everything. It felt like closing a door softly and finally on a room full of smoke. There was one violation that crossed the line from mosquito to hornet. He showed up at the pottery studio on a Saturday morning and stood in the doorway with his hands in his pockets like he'd wandered in off a sitcom set. The owner is a retired nurse with forearms like a story and she put herself between me and the door so fast I didn't see her move. She said, "You need to leave," with a voice that made all the clay and all the students stop. He said, "I just want to talk." She said, "No." He looked at me. I did not speak. I called 911 with my thumb while looking at a wall of blue-handled tools. They cuffed him in the parking lot. He tried to look sad and cooperative and misunderstood. The officer with the baby face looked at me again and said that sentence again. I put it in my other pocket. The court extended the order. His lawyer sent a motion that said words like misapprehension and context. The judge said, very calmly, "Sir, I do not care about your context." I went to the library and got a card with my name and checked out a cookbook I've wanted forever and sat on the floor between the stacks because the cookbook section is weirdly where they keep the warm light. I made something from it that required patience I didn't have a year ago and fed 3B and 2A on a Tuesday like we were a sitcom about nice people. We ate off my mismatched plates and Dorito looked smug under the table and someone spilled and apologized and then laughed and it was all exactly as big as it needed to be. The funniest, truest moment this month was a tiny one. I came home late, not dangerous late, just the kind where the city exhaled and I exhaled with it, and there was a package at my door from my aunt. It was a doormat that says not today. I put it down and laughed so hard I wheezed, the kind of laugh that unknots you. I stepped onto the mat and remembered what my therapist said the first week in the apartment, when I told her I didn't know who I was, without a vigilance job. She said, "You will be boring to yourself for a while. That's the good part." I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. I am gloriously, outrageously boring sometimes. I water the ridiculous plant on my desk and kill it more slowly than I would have. I buy 3 for 2 limes and don't use them all. I delete texts without reading them. I let things ring out. I do not narrate my choices to anyone who wants to debate them. The wildest thing is not the arrests or the orders or the courthouse fluorescent lights. It's a Thursday night where I'm sitting on my couch reading a book that makes me gasp and nobody sees it but the cat and me. It's a morning where I take the long way to work because the trees on Maple are doing their thing and my coffee tastes like possibility. It's buying a bus pass because I finally live somewhere where the bus goes. It's getting into bed and not bracing. I am still saying yes. Sometimes it's big, stand up in a room and ask for your name back. Sometimes it's stupid, white sheets, again, even though Dorito is clearly part dust. It's never tidy. It's not a montage. It's this, limes in a bowl, teal enamel cooling on the stove, the exact weight of the keys in my hand as I lock my own door and go to sleep.